when you kind of look at what the metallurgies of what Nagano says these things are made of, you're like, oh, okay, yeah. You're talking about triple Helios quartz laminate armor. You're like, yeah, I don't think that's gonna look like flat paint.
Welcome to another episode of the Newtype Notebook. I'm Ricky. You can find me on Instagram at Ricky_glues. In this episode, we're talking about the 5-star stories. Some of you listening might have never heard of it, and honestly, I was one of those people not long ago. To me, this series feels like the Copper Dead Sea Scrolls, difficult to access or decipher, filled with a dense, winding, and mysterious story, with a massive retcon partway through the series, all born from the imagination of a single creator. Its meanings are layered and often obscured by tricky translations, and of course it features some of the most otherworldly and beautiful mecha designs ever conceived. Thankfully, we have Dan, also known as Burial, here to help us start unraveling what the 5-star stories is all about, and how to approach building one of these incredible models. In this episode, Blukara and I talk with Dan to explore what makes 5-star stories so special. We'll learn the ins and outs of building a 5-star stories model kit by taking a deep dive into one of Dan's remarkable FSS builds, the Baga Ha Ri. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy. It's been a while since Plamo. That's the first time that I met you this past year, and I had seen some of the stuff that you made, including the some of your 5-star stories kits, but I didn't know you as a person, but I just saw it online and I thought, okay, this is like really cool. I really have very little experience with 5-star stories. But then having talked to you at the show or at Plamo, but also like a lot online, it really got me interested. And yeah, you're kind of like everybody's expert, right? Blukar, I think, can speak to that too, just like how big of an evangelist you are for the series. Yeah, David, how did you get to know Dan?
I don't remember. It's like he eventually messaged me like one day, and then we just start like chatting, and he's very like technical with like paint, like the way he paints and stuff like that. So he would, I think I remember he would like give me tips on how to do this and like what not to do, and things like that. And so it's like because
I
of
would
that,
say,
I feel like
knowing me,
yeah, he's very detailed.
knowing
So
me was point paint.
yeah, so I just like I eventually like it helped me a lot, So like, and eventually I came in and with his 5-star story stuff, uh, and I'm here now. And I don't know, just like it's just a lot of stuff, but I still don't know a lot about it, but that's why I'm here today. So yeah, we'll learn something.
Yeah, yeah, David, you dove all the way in the deep end. It seems like in the last couple of months.
Yeah.
Sure, Dan. Sure, a lot of that has to do with you, right?
No, I mean, when I find something that I like, I'm gonna try and share it. And if there's somebody that I think will enjoy it or do a great job with it, I'm gonna, like I said, I'm push it on them, but I'm gonna push it in their direction and just kind of leave it there and see where they take it. So I've had a lot of people that, saw a lot of the 5-star stories that I've been working on or been sharing, and then they've kind of like gravitated toward it and latched on, and some have liked it and some have gone off the deep end, and others have been, picking a kit here and there and, taking it steady to kind of build up. So it's been fun to watch, it go from a little more obscure uh on the hobby side, with it being a smaller inclusion, to having more people exposed to it and seeing it for what it is and kind of being like, hey, that's a cool alternative to a mecha that isn't Gundam. So it's
Yeah,
been
and
fun.
Dan, I'm sure a lot of that growth in the States has to do with you. I'm sure.
I mean,
Either And
I would
just
argue that, but I 'cause there's a lot of guys out there that are really pushing the envelope outside of me. You know, B-Hop, is actually, I think, sponsored by Volk, so he does a lot of work. He does tend to like the older mortar head designs, which we'll get into later. And I like the mortar head designs, but I've been kind of gravitated more towards the new Gothic made GTMs because they're just otherworldly.
yeah, agreed. They're all the designs, but especially for me, the newer ones are really beautiful in a way that Gundam isn't, which is really cool for sure. Like you said, I mean, they're just very different, but just beautiful. And I wouldn't call a Gundam beautiful, I guess is how I would put it.
I mean, a lot
But
of them
some of these
can
are
be.
truly beautiful. Yeah. Um, so how did you get started with plastic model building or just model building in general? What does
Oh,
that journey look like for you?
so my dad, um, has always kind of been into models. So when we were growing up, he was really into NASCAR. So we would go to, local NASCAR events, and then he'd buy the quick, snap fit model kits. I remember the first one I got was, I think, Bobby Hamilton when he had the number 48 Country Time Lemonade car. So me and my brothers would just snap those together and just throw them on a shelf, and they just get dusty. We didn't paint them. It was just maybe a sticker here or there. Um, and as time went on, Toonami came out. We started watching anime, got into Gundam, and then it wasn't really easy to find things, but you go to a specialist store and we'd find, like an Alex Master Grade or a Death Scythe, and we'd pick those up and kind of snap build them, throw the stickers on, and just that was about it really. After that I really kind of fell out of Gundam, and started doing a little bit of Warhammer 40K, like, 5th grade up to 8th grade, just little miniature painting. Um, and then went into high school and college and just did nothing up until about the later half of 2020 when a friend just started sharing like photos of painted gunpla, and I was just amazed. I was like, I've forgotten about all this. This is really cool. I'd kept up with anime and reading manga, but I hadn't really paid attention to Gundam. So I just started looking at it and went, "Hey, that looks really fun." And I like the creativity and the different expressions of, these designs. So kind of got back into it with the full intention of painting, and just kind of went from there.
Yeah, your story echoes, I think, David and mine a lot.
Oh yeah.
Just from the Toonami days, and then just kind of falling off as we got a little bit older, and then just kind of coming back and falling in love with the hobby again. But that's cool. So, uh, and then how did your relationship with Five Star Story start?
So I saw the kids. At the time I was really shopping off Newtype because there's no local hobby where I live. So I would see them, and they were cool, but I didn't really resonate with them at the time. And I remember just kind of like, that's a cool design, but that's $90 for a kit. And I have, at the time I'm paying 40, $50. And at that point I'm kind of stretching it. So I remember seeing, I think it was probably a month or two before it released, the Magna Palace, and being like, holy crap, that is a really cool design. Like, it was nothing I'd seen before. And it's, brilliant shining gold. And then I remember seeing the price and just going, "Oh, hell no. I'm not paying $800 for a full resin kit."
Ooh,
I was like, I'm not there." And just kind of like, just brushing it off. Um, and then probably 2 years later, I was on a Discord, and one of the gentlemen on the group that I have talked to a lot was big into resin and was talking about how he was getting a Magna Palace. And I was like, dude, you're spending $800 on this kit? He goes, I don't know. I'm getting a recast. I mean, you can't even get the kit. It was a lottery. So if you didn't win it, that was it. Like, you win it, you buy it, or you don't. So he's like, I'm getting a recast. It's going to be technically better than the original Volks because they've put a lot of time and effort into like cleaning up areas. So he introduced me to a bit of the higher quality recasts, and so I started looking at them like, hey, I can actually afford this as opposed to $200 to $500 for just the basic resin kits, and that's kind of where it started. And well, it grew a lot.
David, have you dropped $800 on a kit?
Oh, maybe like two of them are like on the. It's just having two of them is a little bit over 800.
Yeah, that can be intimidating for sure. Um, but it's great to hear that there's like some other options, and I'm sure we'll get into that in a little bit too. Dan, as a builder, how would you describe yourself? Do you have like a signature style? Do you have certain things that you gravitate towards in terms of the focus? If someone were to see your build, how would they identify that as like, oh, that's a burial build right there?
They probably wouldn't. I don't really have a set style. I mean, I love weathered builds. I've done a lot of Moshish and Creeker, gunpla, shading, clean builds. The Gothic maids, obviously, and the 5-star stories are very clean and distinct. But um, outside of just my attention to detail, because I scrutinize everything that I do beyond what should be acceptable. Not really. I mean, you could see one of my kits that I've done and show somebody one of the 5-star stories and be like, who do you think built this and who built that? And they be like, I have no idea. And they're like, well, the same guy did it. I like to push the boundaries of, I like to make myself uncomfortable when I can, because, learning the distinctions in weathering and paying attention to the scale and how realism and, if one's been hit by, oncoming fire or flown through debris or whatever, uh, it does apply, slowly over time to future plans I have for other builds. So being able to paint clean and then mess it up, or being able to do, shading work and then, use that to kind of modulate the painting for like, say, space atmospheric wear, because without there being any gravity, you're not going to have a lot of, rust stains or just, gravity streaks. So being able to modulate that and make it look like it's been out in space with straight solar radiation hitting it for who knows how long, is just something that I like. I just really like to try everything, really.
Yeah. I think that's a hallmark of a great builder is just always kind of trying new techniques, doing different things, not sticking with the same aesthetic or style for every single build. I mean, David, you've seen some of Dan's work. How would you describe Dan as a builder?
I remember seeing Alex, and that was pretty good. I remember I think that's the one that I remember the most because of all the work he did on the stand. It's like, okay, I want to see it again. It's like I want to see another one like that, or like part two of that. So I haven't seen another Gundam in a while, but that one is probably my favorite one. And then his 5-star story stuff. It's probably my second. And then I don't know. It's just like his style is so like top tier, high quality stuff. And then it's like you can see it in like the way he does like spoon testing. I've never seen anyone do like the way he does spoon testing and the methods of the way he mixes like things. And it's like I don't know, I'm learning a lot from it, so that's why I'm always sticking around and stuff like that. So I feel like his style is unique because of that, because it's not like something that you can find. I feel like you can find anywhere like in a book or some tutorials.
I mean, the thing that stood out to me when I saw some of your builds was just like the paint work, like David was saying, just the quality and just the sort of depth of color. And I'm sure we'll get into a lot of those different techniques as we continue talking. Where can people find you? How can people connect with you?
So I'm obviously on the Instagram, so anyone can comment or DM me. I usually answer everybody unless it's spam. And then I'm on a few of the discords. Uh, our gunpla, I usually just hang around workshop just to talk shop with people. Um, and then a few others that were just kind of hangout areas, but that's generally the best way. I don't really get onto X, Twitter, or any of the meta stuff. So,
And where do you live, or what state are you in?
I'm in Middle Tennessee.
What's the gunpla community like, or the plastic modeling community out in Tennessee?
Uh, it's if it's there, it's extremely small because, like I said, I mean, the only thing we really have is Hobby Lobby. So unless you go to a Hobby Lobby and find, a gunpla kit there, that's pretty much it. I mean, there might be one or two other stores, like maybe a Barnes and Noble. But besides myself, there's only two other modelers I know of in the area. Um, that'd be Evan Gavin, and then another gentleman that does a bit of 5 Star Stories work that was at Playmo as well. But he's further out and not on social media, so we don't have a good way of really contacting each other. So it's pretty small.
All right. If anybody out there is listening and lives in Tennessee, you know who to hit up. You got to grow the community out there for sure. Um,
Be nice.
so yeah, uh, let's jump into just 5 Star Stories, the manga and the series.
Yeah.
I'm hoping we can just kind of introduce people to it for people who are coming into it totally blind, kind of like me. I'm wondering if you can just share what it is, like when did it start, what's like
Oh,
the cultural significance in
so
Japan.
it's long. So 5 Star Stories is written by Mamoru Nagano, who actually was also on Zeta and Double Zeta. And that's particularly the reason why you don't see any more animated stuff from him, is because Bandai burned that bridge so heavily that he kind of withdrew from a lot of outlets. He's very, very involved with his creation because of kind of like his creative loss from working with Zeta and Double Zeta. Um, so 5 Star Stories is actually 40 years old this year, and it has been ongoing since 1986. So there's a lot of content. Um, so the manga is the 5 Star Stories. It's named after what's called the Joker cluster. So it's 4 stars, basically east, west, north, and south, and then a fifth star, which is a comet that kind of orbits around these 4 star clusters and pulls its own planets with it. Actually, um, so it's basically set very like in the future, obviously, um, but takes over many, many, many decades, even millennia, even. Um, Kind of is based off of what was called the Super Empire, which was a super technically advanced, civilization that took place was ahead of them, and then due to unknown reasons, just kind of collapsed. It left back remnants. It left kind of some of the people behind, but they've all kind of devolved into lesser forms than they were back then. Um, so there's many many nations because obviously being nearly 5 star systems. But the major ones are the Amaterasu Kingdom Defenses, also known as the AKD, the Fillmore Empire, Trio de Colos, and then the Magotia Union. Uh, so, with the series being so old, the mecha actually started off being called Mortarheads uh, in the first half of the manga. About 20, 25 years in, Nagano decided to do completely retcon the series and changed it to Gothic Made, or GTMs. He kind of kept the characters the same, but he changed a lot of the background, and the mecha changed 100%. So it kind of split the community. Uh, when that started, most of them were either, they prefer Mortarheads or they like the new Gothic Made stuff. It's very rare for them to kind of like both. It's like taking your baby and then like changing it completely and saying, well, this is what you have to like now. Um, Fortunately, with me kind of coming into it later, I appreciate both. I prefer the new stuff because it's shiny and new. Um, but I really do like a lot of the older mortar head designs, especially some of the later ones that he made. Um,
Yeah.
so the pilots are called headliners. They can live anywhere like from 250 to a couple, 300, 400 years old. They're just genetically superior to standard humans, and even standard humans at that point are living 200 and 250 years just because of how things have evolved and in their bodies. Um, the headliners are special because they're the only ones that can pilot the mecha in the series. It's so strenuous that it would pretty much kill a normal human. Their reactions times aren't strong enough. Their bodies aren't strong enough. But even with that, there's a secondary system required to piloting any of these mecha, and those are the basically humanoid androids called the Fatima, and they are literally grown from special meisters that kind of create them, tune them, and then they go through special programming so that they can control all the major systems of the mecha. So the headliner's piloting it, and they're basically having a hard enough time just doing that, and they require that Fatima to actually take care of the rest. Run the shield systems, the weapon systems, all of that, all the supplementary things. Um, so on top of that, the Fatima are also they're humanoid, but they're not human. They're very different. Uh, they're near perfect, and they're ostracized and have severe limitations and rules governing them uh, in society. So if they're out in public, they cannot show their face, they can't show their body. They're completely covered in like these super heavy cloaks with masks. Um, they're thinner. They have very long limbs and features. They can't reproduce, and they have to always be paired with a headliner. If they're not, they can be stolen or killed without any repercussion.
In terms of the story, does it follow like a particular set of characters, or is it more of like an anthology, or how is that kind of broken up?
Uh, a bit of both. I mean, obviously, so the movie takes care of the first volume of the manga, and that's going to have to do with Ladia Sop, who is trying to get Lachesis back, and she's a special Fatima that Latius was around when she was being, I guess, grown. So as little children, they're allowed to kind of run around. So he played with her, and she fell in love with him, and said that hey, when I grow up, I want him to be, the pilot of whatever mecha. And she kind of told him, hey, I want our mecha to be gold. Like I dream of a gold knight. So all that happens, and then that's basically what the movie in the first volume covers is him finding she finding out who he actually is, and then obviously finding the Knight of Gold, which is the mortar head that he designed for her. So it's kind of it's a love story. It's constant war and turmoil. I mean, the whole reason that the mecha were created is because they can't just decimate the countryside, the planets. There's not enough resources left, so they have to keep destruction to a minimum, but obviously be able to put down insurrections and other opposing armies. So the mecha are there to basically reduce damage to the resources on each planet. So that's particularly what it's about, but it gets very long-winded. There's a lot of back and forth that you'll flip between characters. You'll find out the characters changed after 50 years or 100 years, and it kind of goes back and forth. You'll actually have time skips, so it's very long.
Yeah, 40 years of continuous running manga
Yeah.
series might do that to you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Um, you mentioned that there is kind of a love story at the center of the kind of early volumes. Are there other kinds of themes in the manga that you would call out? Is there like sort of Game of Thrones level, like
Oh, that
political
that and
intrigue,
beyond.
or
There's some stuff that you find out about a certain character, and then you find out that because I'm trying not to give away any of the spoilers, but you find out that character's history, where they came from, and it's amazing. And then he finds out, or they find out, how they were brought about and things that they've done. It gets very Game of Thrones very, very quickly. It's very long and drawn out, and the history, so it's definitely worth a read. Unfortunately, the manga's not 100% translated, and then there's a lot of arguments as to whether it was translated properly. So you might read one chapter, and then the next, what was said in the first is completely backwards from what they're saying at the later half. So it's hard to follow. Nagano's writing is very difficult to keep up with, and none of the recent stuff is even translated. So you're just kind of using Google Translate to pick pieces and hope that you've got it right. They are working on a new translation. We don't know if it's gonna be good or not. Again, the way that Nagano writes this, it's so hard to comprehend, and then there's some fake translations that make it infinitely worse. So it's rough.
Fake
It's
translation.
great. It's rough.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's wild. I think I read through like volumes up to like volume 3 maybe, like,
Yeah.
and it has been enjoyable, but sounds like it can go off the rails pretty quick.
Oh, it does go off the rails really quick.
I haven't read too much of it.
That's great.
Does it like get too like confusing? It sounds like you said it's like off the rails. Is it like it's not like it sounds like it's very Game of Thrones-y, right?
Yeah, that'd be the most accurate. Like it's a more science fiction
Yeah,
Game of Thrones,
yeah.
and it's still not done yet. So
Mhm.
it can
How
go
old is the
anywhere. I
guy?
mean,
It's like how old is the dude, the next
oh, the series is going to be 40 years,
really
40 years old this year.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough, we both share the same birthday.
Is Nagano like, is he like approaching 70 now or what?
I think he's in his late 50s,
Oh,
maybe early 60s, I forget. But I mean, he's been around. I guess he's the one that designed the Hyakushiki and the Kibale.
so I mean Zeta, so it's like early 80s. So he must have been like super young.
Hmm.
Wow.
And that's when, like if you look at the Kibale Damned, for example, that's actually a lot of the five-star stories people hate Naoki because he stole the design from Nagano, because you can see how it has heels and the larger hands like his later, GTMs, and then the more like segmented torso. So they're like, that's stolen from Nagano. So a lot of them really
Mm.
don't like Naoki.
Right. Some of the weight, like the waist and like the raised cane is another one, right? Like
Yep, exactly.
borrows a lot of those features.
So like with the Gothic Maid and the Motorhead designs, I noticed that they're like it's kind of like a remade or like a change of. They look way different what they used to look like, but it's the same. Is the same like pilot? Is it the same like character? And because I noticed since they like one looks like a lot bigger, and then the next model is a lot skinnier. Like for example, the one that's up there that's in your on Ricky's I seen the older model of that, and then there's that one. I forgot what that's called. But it like is there like a plot change or is it just a design thing?
So that's actually I'll pull that up here. Let me find it. So that's going to be the different like empires. They have their own designers for their mecha.
Okay.
So at the core, they have the headliner, they have the Fatima pilot, but they've got their own designs because these machines are like national treasures. That's why they're typically so clean, is because these things represent the entire strength of that empire. So that's an example of the Fillmore Empire mortar heads. You've got the Providence, the Neptune, the Siren A, Siren F, Siren E. I think that's the R, and then the Phantom series. So that's all one empire as it's kind of evolved, it's mecha. You know, they're constantly over millennia changing their designs. Um, then you've also got, you know, thinner designs. Like this is also another Fillmore design, the interest of Disturb. Um, and some of the Meisters that create these will collaborate or say the pilot's killed, but the mecha survives. They might take it and then incorporate it into their own army. So yeah, the designs change a lot. I mean, you've got some of the later designs before you went to Gothic made, like the Gasness Temple here, the original Knight of Gold. And if you pay attention to the legs, especially the heels, kind of show you at what point in design Nagano was. The earlier ones had flat feet, and then later on they transitioned to having the high heel that
Yeah,
the Gothic maids have now. And he's got really cool stuff. And then you've got designs like the cavalry, which are extremely bulky, very straight edges, which is unusual for his design. But it's him just showing, hey, this is a different country, a different empire's idea of what they like, what they strive for. Um, and then your actual frame, because they're very almost organic at the base level. And actually, to answer your question about the one that Ricky's got. So that is the original mortar head design for the Gitexion Mark III, known as the Bang. And I think there are 7 in total,
that's
but it's also known as the bursting doll, which is the kind of red emblem on its shoulder.
yeah. I've seen this model a lot, or it seems like it's very popular in the community of PlayStation Store.
Yep, it's one of the very common plastic kits made by Volks. They've got a 1/144th and a 1/100. Uh, it's a great kit, very pretty. Uh, Outside of the very tall, pointy head, the only thing to really worry about are the tendrils that run down its back because they're very long, as you kind of see in the photo. So obviously, as a model and being that it is posable, keeping all of that balanced can be difficult, which is why I've kind of gravitated more towards the resin. Is that you know, they can be more fragile, but they typically stand on their own and you can pin the legs down and they're not going to budge or start to, crouch down or slope over, which I like when you're building something for it not to kind of collapse on itself.
Yeah, always a good feature.
Oh yeah.
Um, well, let's transition into talking about the model kits since you brought up a few of the points there. So um, there do seem to be a lot of different, I guess, categories of these model kits. You've got different brands, you've got plastic, you've got resin, you've got different scales.
Mhm.
Um, the Can you give us kind of like a really brief sort of overview of the options that you have as a builder when it comes to picking and buying a model kit?
Oh, there's quite a few. Volks is the most common. You've also got Wave. Volks and Wave both make plastic model kits. They're posable. Um, you've also got Our Treasure, which is kind of spotty in what they make as far as plastic, but they have a pretty good build. They just released a fixed pose plastic model of the Gitexion Mark III, which is one of the newer GTMs. I think it's a 1/144th scale. Um, so for the mortar heads, the top producer is definitely Volks. They call their plastic line the IMS line, and they make it in 1/144th and 1/100. Um, They've also just released the VSMS line, which is the 1/100 scale plastic posable models for the newer Gothic made kits. They've got the Dacus and the Mark III Gitexion released right now, and I think they're going to be releasing the Decacerin. And they've teased photos of the Zarathustra Afterbringer. Uh, Looks to be the light armor version, which is fine because not having a 2 foot long cannon is probably a good thing for a plastic model. But I'm sure they'll probably release that later on. But from what I've seen, I don't own one, but the plastic's very nice. It's semi-translucent, so you can apply a little bit of paint to make it better, or you can, do a little bit of marker work here and there, and they look great.
You said 144 and 100.
Yep.
These are pretty common sort of Gundam scales as well. Can you give us like a sense of like relative size to, let's say, an HG from the Gundam line? Is it pretty close?
Uh, Typically the mortar heads are a little bit bigger. The scaling from Volks and our Treasure and Wave, all of them really, people would argue, that it's an exact, to scale. They're typically going to be a little bit bigger than the HGs, and then the 1/100th are typically bigger than a master grade as well. I mean, most of these, the Bang, for example, it's technically it's 15.3 meters. Um, in comparison, the new Gothic maids are about 22 to 26 meters tall. So they're going to be a little bit bigger, but I think from what I've seen of the actual plastic kits, the 1/100s are about on scale with the mortar heads. So there's a bit of argument as to whether those sizes are accurate or if they're just kind of, this is 1/100, we're just going to call it that. Because they have actually gone back and forth on even the recent Gothic mates. When they made the resins, they called them 1/100 scale. And then a few months later, changed it to 1/72 scale. So,
Oh,
yeah.
interesting.
And they now make a 1/100th resin GTM scale. So to add further confusion.
Still be
Okay, so some of the older 1/100s are actually 172s, and then they also have new 1/100s, which are
Yep.
actually smaller than.
They've got a
Gotcha.
few disclaimers where they've, hey, if you see this on the box, it's actually this scale now. So even though it says that on the box, that's what they consider it as far as the actual scaling that they're selling it at now, which is fun.
I was just yeah. At first, I was confused with the scaling because I was already confused with the naming, and then like trying to find out. It's like, oh, they have 1/100, and then like you're talking about like uttered brands and stuff like that. It's like, and then when you look it up, it's like it gets very confusing. If you might be looking at the Art Treasure one, or like the Wave one, or the Resin one, so it's like it's very confusing.
Yeah,
It makes it difficult. I think yours is the Our Treasure, isn't it, Ricky?
it is. Yeah.
Okay. And I can't remember. So the biggest difference I think between that one and the Volks, I believe, outside of a few pieces that are canonically clear, that kit is solid plastic. And then the Volks, at least the armor pieces, are like a semi-translucent kind of light blue metallic pearl, which, depending on who you talk to, that's Nagano accurate, or just an aesthetic thing. But when you kind of look at what the metallurgies of what Nagano says these things are made of, you're like, oh, okay, yeah. When you're talking about triple Helios quartz laminate armor, you're like, yeah, I don't think that's gonna look like flat paint. So it, that's kind of why I prefer the Volks, is that they're kind of trying to make it more accurate to what Nagano designed these things in description of what the armor's made of, because he really puts in a lot of work.
Um, you mentioned that there's also a whole series of resin kits alongside the plastic model kits. Can you talk a little bit more about the resin kits and kind of your buying options or where you can find them?
Yeah. Finding them difficult. Uh, and that's why generally I like to suggest, if you're brand new to the series and you're not buying a plastic one, try to find a recast, just because the cost difference is tremendous. The only active producers of the resin kits are Volks, Our Treasure, and then Wave technically has one right now. I think they're going to make another, but they're typically very difficult to find. The Our Treasure they release only in Japan, and only once. So once the pre-order's done and they're sent out, they don't make it again. You also
Wow.
have to order it on a Japanese site through a proxy. So you're going to have to pay the price plus the Japanese taxes plus the proxy fee, and then pay for it to come over here and pay that tax and tariff again. So they're generally I think $400 to $700, and after proxy and taxes, probably anywhere from 550 to $900. So it's difficult.
It's like
What is the appeal of the resin, or I guess, how do they justify the cost of that? Or is that preferred for serious five-star stories builders? Like,
Um, there's more detail, so it's lower production. Obviously, with the plastic, they can make the mold. There's not a whole lot of cleaning to it. They just make sure it's in good shape, make sure they don't have a lot of defects, um, and then keep on printing the plastic. The resin, from what I've seen, Volks is constantly going through and cleaning their molds and trying to make sure they're good. Now they're not perfect, but the detail is definitely a lot stronger on a lot of the resins. Some of the newer plastic IMS kits, you might argue it's pretty close, if not the same, but you're also talking about these very tall models that don't have the strongest of joints. So a lot of them are like, hey, I'm not going to pose this. So they'd rather just buy the resin kit, clean it up, put it together, and then that's it. There's no polycaps or ball joints failing that are going to cause it to fall over in a display case. Um, that and a lot of the newer, especially the newer resin kits, they're kind of advertised more towards like grown up Japanese businessmen, because the sort of series being 40 years old, they were probably, if they were introduced to it when they were in their teens, 20s, they're in their 40s and 50s and probably successful, and they're only going to buy one or two models a year. So they're like, yeah, I'm fine paying 50,000, 80,000 yen for this kit and just building it over a year, half a year. um so
yeah.
yeah.
So really
um
complex kits, really expensive kits, intended for serious builders,
that
experienced builders at that.
for Japan, they definitely do market it that way. The Volks releases are fortunately a little bit better for us. There is Volks USA. They don't sell the resin kits in the US. Now, if you go to like Comic Con or I forget which one it is out in California, they will bring a few for sale, but they're also priced, I think, at a 1 to 100 conversion per yen. So they're usually about 50 to $200 more than if you would say bought it from Volks Japan and had it shipped over. Volks Japan does not sell the resin kits all the time. You actually have to watch the website and see when they're going to have an event. And then when they have the event, typically, if it's a very popular kit, you've got maybe 5 minutes to place the order and hope there's enough. Um, for the newer GTMs, that's usually not an issue. It's a really popular one, like the Zarathustra Afterbringer. Um, but the other good thing about Volks Japan is that they don't charge overseas taxes. So if you buy it from them with the intention of them shipping it to you globally, they're not going to charge you the Japanese taxes. Obviously, you'll pay a tariff, but it's a whole lot better than having getting hit twice on the taxes. Um, Besides that, they also use DHL, which is nice. It gets there in about what 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah.
Yep. And then their boxing is probably one of the most elaborate and nice presentations. I mean, it's double box. They're very well protected. I've yet to have one show up with any damage. So I've liked it. The DHL extra charge with the new tariffs kind of stinks, but you know, if you want it that bad and you don't want to get the recast, it's definitely worth it.
Can you speak more on the recast? Like, what is a recast for people who aren't familiar?
So recast is, I mean, it's basically it's all in China, which isn't a bad thing. Um, but larger FSS community doesn't like it. If you talk about that in Japan, you would basically get run out of whatever building you're in at that point, or room, if you've got a purist in there. Considering the cost, I like I said, I do recommend that if you're wanting to get into this, but you're not really sure, get a recast. They're usually 100, sometimes $200, which is a whole lot less than what you'd pay for an original. Um, some of the major recasters in Japan, or sorry, in China, would be Galaxy Hobby. That's the one that most of us gravitate towards too, because they actually do a really good job of buying the original, and then cleaning up the cast. They'll rescribe lines, make them more pronounced. If there's a lot of flashing, they'll clean it off, and then they'll recast it. So basically, they'll make a casting of the actual original part, and then they'll just take that mold and make their own out of it. And that's why it's called a recast. They're not actually making the design; they're just cleaning it up a little bit and then reselling it. So technically stolen, kind of like dabbing on your third party Gundam kits, but for some of them that we can't get anymore, the older lottery kits, that's the only way you're going to get it unless you pay the secondary prices. I mean, um, the lottery kits they do, Volks does once a year. You have 2 to 3 chances to win the lottery. So they basically you put in that you want to buy this kit, and then they draw the names. And if you don't get it, you can't buy the kit. And the secondary pricing is usually double. So if it was 100,000 yen, it's now 200,000 yen, and you're paying the taxes in Japan because you're buying it from a proxy. So it gets really expensive.
Yeah.
And that's the one benefit I would say to the recast is that if you want to get uh, a Magna Palace, that's the only way you're going to get it, at least without again paying secondary scalper prices.
Got it. Interesting. Um, for people who are maybe more familiar with Gundam or Gunpla, can you talk a little bit about like the construction of these kits as they compare? Are they snap fit? Is there glue involved, etc.? You know, those kinds of considerations.
I would say 95% you're going to have to glue. The older IMS kits, you're going to have to glue, you're going to have to fit. There's pretty major seams. The newer VSMS, for what I've seen, not owning one, um, might require some glue, but from what I can tell, you can assemble one without paint, and it looks pretty good. The IMS kits, from what I've seen and heard, you can assemble it, but you're definitely gonna have to glue it, and it's not gonna look like the photos because they're unfortunately they are marketed more towards and a more experienced builder that's gonna have to do some painting and seam work and things like that. Now, what look fine with a few seams showing? Yeah. I mean, it's just gonna look like, an older Bandai kit where they weren't, perfect on the fitment and all that. But they do require glue. They are definitely not something you want to be moving around and posing every, even every month because there are a lot of really delicate, smaller pieces. So, um, going from Gunpla into it, you definitely might be in for a bit of culture shock. Now, again, the newer VSMS kits look to be a little more forgiving. Haven't got my hand on one yet, but from what I've seen, people are posing them. That you have to use a stand to hold them up for some of the crazy poses. Um, but they do seem to be you can build one and it won't look as rough as some of the IMS did back even the more recent ones even.
So those Volks plastic kits are cast in color.
Yes.
Oh, okay. This Our Treasure one that I bought is actually just all gray. It's like all
Yes.
gray
Yeah.
plastic.
Yeah. The Our
So
Treasure is 100%. You could. I mean, I've seen guys even buy the resin and just assemble it, paint the whole thing gray, and call it a day, just because they like the design. But yeah, if you want it to look like the art or even the box, the Our Treasure, yeah, it's 100% paint.
if you are a first time builder of a 5-star stories kit, what advice would you give them? I know you mentioned a few things already in terms of not just building, but also like picking a kit or a model to build.
Um, so with the plastic ones, they're all pretty similar. The newer ones, the later IMS, if you're worried about fitment or Some of the seams, definitely get one of the newer ones like the Siren F. Really nice kit. Again, there are some seams, but they've kind of done a better job. If you're really worried, I would definitely say look into the VSMS. They're really nice, very posable. But if you don't like the semi-clear, then at that point you're kind of left to the IMS. But again, definitely one of those kits that's going to look a whole lot better with some decent marker work or just doing a full paint. Now, if you're doing a resin, definitely want to invest in a lot of drill bits, zero point 0.5, 1 millimeter, 1.5, 2, and then all the brass pins that go along to it, because every single piece technically should be pinned to the kit. Uh, they have connections, you can glue them, but you put your hand on it the wrong way and it's going to fall right off and take the paint with it, which definitely has not happened to me. Um, but yeah,
Okay, so for people who don't know, what is pinning? What does that mean to pin your kit?
so pinning is taking a piece. So let's say, I would like to use a visual aid. I don't know if I can, but let's say you've got a gunpla kit and you've snapped off the peg that you're going to insert into the arm. Well, typically you can either glue that and it's going to be a little flimsy, or you can take a drill bit and mark both sides where they would line up perfectly. And they make some tools that will help with that, but you mark it, drill in, and then insert an appropriate pin, paper clip, brass rod, whatever, and then glue those two together. That strengthens the bond so that it's less likely to tear. For the resin kit, especially the Volks, they actually have marks already on each piece that show where that pin mark where you're going to drill. So they kind of make it easier on you, so you're not having to drill, put it at the end, put an insert in, and try to match up where you're going to have to drill on the other side so that it fits properly. But the pinning is basically just putting in a solid rod to strengthen that joint. And for example, like the GTMs, especially the new Gothic made designs, their torsos are very thin. So Volks actually sends you the kit with a like 3 millimeter rod from top to bottom, all the way through the torso. So that if there's a bunch of weight on it, it's not going to snap it, because I've got some that are the torso's thinner than my pinky. And this thing's going to hold, a 2 foot cannon, and then it's going to have two massive binders on its back, and then it's going to have shields on each arm, and each arm's also, about 10 inches long. So it's a
Doesn't
lot
make
of weight.
sense.
So, oh no, it's not even a little bit, but it looks awesome. So they'll insert some pins on some of the harder pieces, or the longer ones, like the Zarathustra Afterbringer, the full one. The cannon is about 2 feet long, and they've got a solid rod going through the cannon so it doesn't flex over time, which would obviously break the paint, break the resin, or just cause it to sag. So they do a pretty good job of making that a little easier for you, because I don't think anyone has a 12-inch drill bit that, or even feels that confident drilling straight for that long. Because,
Yeah.
like David was saying, I've drilled, that long, and sometimes it goes really well, and other times I'm going to have to get in there with a little pry bar and try and bend it so that it's matched up perfectly. But
I didn't even drill
for the
bit
most
through
part,
like the piece itself.
oh yeah,
I had to like fill it in after.
Fill in the
yeah,
back end.
Yeah.
Exit wound.
Yeah.
yeah.
um,
Done that once to a hand. That was not fun.
Yeah. When I first did mine, the pinning was very, very hard.
the pinning part in particular.
Yeah, because you have to you have to drill it like kind of like straight and parallel to the other side. So if it doesn't, if it's not like aligned, it can be like misplaced.
Yeah, I've done the only pinning that I've ever done are on like my 124 scale car kits. Sometimes I'll pin like one of the rear view mirrors before I glue them into the body. And I've had the same problem. Like, how do you drill in a way that makes sure that the pin is not going in at the wrong
Right.
angle to the piece? So, yeah, what's your advice for making sure that when you're drilling, because you're drilling two different pieces,
Yep.
but you have to make sure that the drills are or the holes are lined up, right?
Yep. So, again, fortunately, Volks does a good job of having like an indention. So they've already actually taken a tool and made sure that both pieces will line up. And where that indention is where if you drill, 90% straight, it'll line up perfectly and both pieces will fit. And then you can, when you finish all your painting, you can, glue it together and it'll hold a whole lot stronger. Um, as for drilling, uh, a lot of it is, I'd say half of it's guesswork and half of it's just eyeing up everything. Like I'll be sitting there drilling something with the little, Dispier 1 millimeter, and I'll be constantly like turning to make sure that what looks like, is on a flat plane axis is staying straight. And most of the time I've been lucky. A few times I've cursed under my breath and, like I said, brought out the little pliers to bend the pin just a little bit so that it's straight. But overall, they make it a whole lot easier than, say, like an Our Treasure resin kit, which has usually 25% more pieces, and they're 1/100 scale, so they're smaller, and they have no pin marks. So you have to go through and drill a piece, insert a special tool that has like a mark on the other end, push the two pieces together, and then go back and pray that that mark lines up perfectly, and then drill the other side. And it's a whole lot longer process. So Volks does do a pretty good job of making things as easy as they can for you, which is appreciated.
Yeah, it sounds like anything that anyone can do to make this process easier would be
Oh yeah.
more enjoyable for sure.
And that's where some of the recasts do a good job again with them kind of pre-cleaning the parts. You can, it's a lot easier to go through and rescribe them or clean up, or even just, do a little bit of sanding and being like, hey, that's deep enough, that's detailed enough, and just calling it a day, and they look really good. The Volks kits, you typically have to go back through with a couple tools to kind of correct. They do have a bit of mold slip commonly, so you'll sit there with a ceramic edge and just kind of scrape them smooth, and then sand them smooth, and then go through with your standard chisels and try to rescribe certain detail areas so they're more pronounced or easier for you to do, your masking and your separation. But still, overall, they do a really good job.
Nice. If people want to learn more about the 5-star stories, if people want to learn more about building 5-star stories kits, do you have any recommendations for where they can go for information?
Um, I believe there's a few YouTubes out with some gentlemen that were building. Um, Unfortunately, I'm in the camp of F around and find out. So I literally just went, okay, I need drill bits, I need pins. Let's just get to it and see how it goes. And it went together pretty well with me having really, really no other, resin knowledge. So if I can do it, I'd say almost anyone can do it. You just need to be safe with sanding and then drilling the resin to make sure you don't, breathe in any of those particles, which can be, can be cancerous. So it's just PPE, being safe, and then taking your time, and then just really not being worried. Uh, if you mess something up, you can fix it. It may not be fun, but you can fix it.
Yeah, just going in with that confidence and just recognizing that there will be mistakes and that there's always ways to fix mistakes. Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome.
Remember, like even talking about the YouTube stuff, and it's like it's very hard to find any tutorial, and then like especially when it's like the specific model you're looking at, like you're trying to find like some kind of like inspiration or like some see what they're doing on that kit, for example, like and then it's like no one there's like no video at all, or like there's no article or tutorial or anything. It's like you just figure it out yourself. It's crazy. That's why I always bothered Burial about it, because I didn't know where to go. Like I sometimes I would copy the Japanese text or the name of it and then just like paste it into like Google, and then like it opens up this like another portal of like Japanese builders that might have worked on it. And then I was like, it kind of helped me a little bit, but still it's very niche to find anything or like tutorials.
Dan, maybe there's a second career
Yeah.
as a model reviewer on YouTube for you or something like
Oh, I don't know about that.
that.
Not sure anyone would want to watch me that long talking about a big old block of orange cheese.
You'd corner the market though. You'd corner the market.
Maybe we'll see.
So yeah, so let's take a deep dive into a couple of your kits, your 5-star story kits. And again, like before I met you, I saw your work and it was just like really mind blowing. And especially for me who doesn't know much about 5-star stories, like really got me excited about these designs and because you seeing you make them kind of brought them to life for me. So um I'll
We'll
let you decide which one you want to dig into first or which one
we'll
you
start
want
with
to
the
focus on.
original. So it's a funny story with the Baga Ha Ri, which I'm just going to call it that because it's a really long name. Its full name is technically for this version is the Baga Ha Ri BS Cobra Swans. It's kind of like the main flagship GTM for the Negotia Empire. They have other versions that look very similar, but if you kind of look at the joints and the armor, it's actually they have much smaller frames because they're not made to output as much power as the this flagship does. Um, so going into this build, um, I was already talking with Chris, who runs Playmo, um, about, hey, yeah, I want to do a GTM. I want to bring it to Playmo. You know, I've really liked the series. No one's really made a bunch of them, especially in the US. I want to bring something. So originally, I wanted to bring the Gatexion Mark III. So I bought the kit, started looking through it, and went, oh crap. This thing is extremely small. So the Gatexion Mark III is based on like an F-18 fighter jet as far as Nagano is concerned. So it's very lithe, very small, and I was like, I don't know if I really want to do this and transport this for my first kit. So I looked back and went, well, I'll just start with one I don't really care about. So I looked online, found a recast of the Baga Ha Ri, and said, hey, that'll work fine. That thing, I have no attachment to it whatsoever. If I screw up, we're good. And that's the last time I said that. Um, so the kit arrived, started, piecing it together, learning how to do pinning, how to fit this kit together, and slowly started to just really appreciate the design. The very kind of almost ancient Egyptian headwork on the crest I thought was really cool. And unfortunately, green's my favorite color, and even I forgot that when I bought the kit and went, oh no. So I did a ton of testing on the paint, which I followed the manual pretty much to the letter. But I wanted to make sure that the pearl coat was right. 'Cause I'm really picky on, how it's going to end up turning out. If I wanted to go with kind of a gold pearl that would kind of show through the paint, or if I wanted to go with the white pearl that they kind of suggested. So we ended up going back and forth and ended up picking, I think, a mixture of a gold pearl and a copper pearl, just for a little effect that you don't really see, but when I was testing spoons, it came out best for me. Um, but yeah,
So this is the kit. And so it's a resin, it's a 1/100, is that right?
so this one is 1/72nd.
A
So it's
1/72. Okay.
about 16 inches tall at the head.
Yeah, which is huge. Um,
Yes.
and in this picture, you've sort of done the test fit. I'm assuming you've pinned it and you're checking fitment.
Yep. So that was fitment check. I think that's probably about 95% assembled. And the crotch piece is upside down, but I didn't do that when I finished it, thank goodness. But yeah, I think the only thing at that point that wasn't on it was the second swing joint on the ankle, on the knees, and the right hand. But yeah, with these, the biggest thing is definitely with them being resin, they can deform a little bit. So test fitting, making sure everything fits properly, getting everything pinned. So there's no tape on there, nothing's glued. So it's literally being held up by the pins and no glue. So that is one step that I always do, just because it means, hey, this thing can stand on its own with everything assembled without any additional gluing. It's literally just the pins holding it. So that gives you a pretty good idea of, hey, is this going to work? Did I mess up a step? Is it too heavy? Do I need to reinforce something? Um,
Mhm.
the other thing, like I said, since resin does warp, is to make sure the pieces fit properly. Like making sure that the large thigh chin piece, this is a solid block of resin, didn't get like crushed and then heat caused it to warp and you can't fit it in, or it's making contact with the ankle, because once this thing's painted and you assemble it, if that scratches, that's it. There's no
Mhm.
going back unless you just redo that whole section and pray you didn't glue everything together at that point. Um, so the test fitting on the resin is definitely very big.
It looks very impressive. Like once you get it to stand, I think it's like it looks like I think you did a good job. It's not collapsing or anything. Because mine's collapsed like the first time.
Oh, don't worry. If I recall correctly, so the arms are always like the weak link in these pens. So if I remember correctly, I think that I was like, this was a hope and a prayer pose.
Yeah.
Like that right arm was pretty floppy too. Once you glue it, it holds a lot better. But yeah, just getting it like that was just like a sigh of relief. Hey, this thing's actually assembled and it can stand on its own, which I was worried
Yeah.
about because without certain pieces on, it was very unstable.
From opening the box to this picture, how many hours or how much time would you say you put into all the prep work?
Oh, to this picture?
Mhm.
So this actually isn't even sanded. This is just basically enough clipping and work to get things fitted. So this is probably, I'd say, 10 hours of work between clipping, pinning, and then the holding your breath assembly.
Got it. And then you still have to go back and then you have to clean up with sanding.
Correct. The
There's
best
a
part.
lot of holding your breath stuff. Like,
Oh yeah.
all the way to the end.
It's a
Oh, that's
blast.
awesome. Um, so let's talk a little bit about paint then.
Yeah.
Um, the general impression that I have is that builders tend to stay true to the design of the mecha when it comes to paint schemes. Would you say
Yes.
that that's fair?
Um, for the Japanese, 110%. It's almost sacrilegious for them to go off of it. Um, other than that, you can do whatever you want to. I love, part of the reasons that I like these is because I love the livery, kind of like the livery schemes they have, representing their armed forces, the nation. So, um, I've liked kind of staying pretty true to the original schemes. I've preferred to add a bit more detail, and I definitely will change some things if I want more detail. Like for example, the hilt of the sword, which is called the gut brow, the nice little diamonds inset there. The original paint scheme has them just all one color. The whole hilt is just like an off black, and that I was like, no, no, we're not doing that. This thing needs a little more detail. We need to like bring it out. So I ended up doing, I think, a pearl, gold, silver, and then gold to kind of illuminate and change up that design a little bit, and then a few details here and there. Um, but for the most part, yeah, I have kept it pretty close to the recipe that Volks gives you, because they do a great job of matching the original artwork that Nagano did.
Yeah, and you were talking a little bit about this paint, the clear paint, the green paint, but it does seem you do seem to have like a different approach to paint compared to what I'm used to with gunpla. So seems like the layering is really important.
Yeah,
Yeah, do you want to talk through how you achieve the color for the screen?
sure. Um, so with a lot of the Gothic made kits, obviously having the clear armor, you can do a ton of expression, and that's one of the biggest things that's kind of attracted me to the series is that you have a lot of options. Um, so take for example the Baga Ha Ri. The Volks description is I think a 3 layered paint process. So you do a mixture of like a clear black and green, and then you do a pearl layer, and then you cover that with, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's just straight clear black, and that tints it finally. I added an extra step with I think GX100 just to give it a bit more gloss because I just wanted a little bit more protection on the paint. But having that layered, in low light, they almost look semi-solid. And then you get into a bright light and you can see straight through it. It's just like a green emerald. And then if the light hits it just right, the pearlescent flake reflects off and you get this weird kind of shifting, almost like it's an ethereal kind of armor. And that right off the bat had me sold. And it's one of those things that I've wanted to continue even going outside of what the suggestion of how to paint it is, because I love that look. It just gives it a completely different feel from any other model kit out there, really.
Do you remember like the brand of paint you used and all that stuff?
Oh yeah. So we're very fortunate that the Volks kits have a super detailed list. They'll actually give you like the exact paints to mix and what ratios. Um, they can be off a little bit. So if you are mixing for the first time, when they tell you to add a strong color, add a little bit at a time, because they'll suggest adding like 5% green, and you'll add 5% green, and that pure white goes to a milky petulant green, and you're like, oh, well, that's a lot of white that I just wasted, and now I can't use it. So I've definitely, I remember warning Blukara a few times, hey, when you mix this, uh, take it slow,
Yeah,
because it'll come back and get you sometimes.
yeah. I was trying to
But
follow
yeah,
that
they give you an
direction,
actual.
and I messed up mine. I was thinking about where I had.
But yeah, they give you a straight, like I think the clear green for this was the suggestion was Gaia clear green and Gaia clear black. And then if I recall, the pearl they suggested was the Mr. Hobby XC01, which I think is like a diamond pearl, which is good. I just didn't like how large the flakes were.
Yeah.
Um, I felt it kind of like hurt the look that I wanted to go with, which is why I kind of experimented with some other Gaia pearls that have a smaller flake uh, to them to give it a more understated kind of pearl look to it.
Yeah. I think are you talking about Mr. Hobby Crystal Color?
Yes, yeah, the Crystal Color
Yeah.
XC01 I think is their diamond pearl. It's really pretty. Just to me, for the size, it just didn't fit the look that I wanted, so I changed that up.
I just wanted to ask if you use like a metallic thinner or is it just like a regular thinner, or they'll change them pearl in.
Are you asking what thinner I use with the
Yeah,
pearls?
like is it like Gaia knows they make a metallic thinner too, that kind of.
Oh yeah. So yes, I so I've mixed all of my metallics and pearls with the Mr. Metallic thinner.
Okay.
Um, and I've actually more recently kind of done some experimentation with instead of doing like my standard like medium uh spray for pearls, doing more of a dry shot and noticing that the pearl builds up differently uh over whatever you're spraying and gives it kind of a more even uniform look. It's kind of hard to explain. I've been testing some uh, about 20 spins for the Dacus armor to kind of give it a because that's a darker green than this, and I wanted it to have kind of like an oil slick look in certain light. So getting the pearl layer with the right saturation was kind of ideal, and so it took some trial and error, and weirdly enough, doing that kind of dry shot with the pearl made it easier to control how much you're spraying on, and the effect, weirdly enough, even though it looked frosted, came out perfect when you put a clear over it.
So
So,
are you bringing your airbrush further back when you're doing that?
um,
and or just not just misting it
Yeah,
rather
yeah.
than like doing a wet coat.
Yeah. So I've got the airbrushes I use have a pretty useful needle stop. So I'll basically set the needle stop and then test on my a glove to see, hey, am I getting enough paint on this? Is it too much, too little? And then just kind of modulating that needle stop until it's just enough. And then I don't have to really worry about me pulling back too heavy and messing up an area. I can just kind of leave it at that and just spray. And then when I'm done, I can release the needle stop and move on.
Yeah, so this picture looks like well, you've got two pictures here.
Yep.
Or these are two different pieces, but this is kind of the final
Yeah.
finish.
So that one is the first stage of paint. So that's just the first stage of the clear green black. And then the second picture, I believe that one's actually finished. So that's the first layer, the pearl, and then the clear black over it, which is why it has that kind of, it still looks plenty green, which is why I was surprised
Mhm.
it called for the clear black, but it did a great job of just kind of subduing it and making it look less Jolly Rancher.
Yeah, it looks like a
Yeah.
candy.
Oh, yeah. People were like, "You making candy?" I'm like, "You don't wanna eat this. This is very bad for you."
Yeah, it really does give it like a an emerald, like gemstone
Oh, yeah.
kind of look to it. It's beautiful. Um, Here's like a picture of another piece you've got here. So talk about what's happening here.
So, this is one of those things that so the directions in Japanese are very hard to translate. So, a lot of the things, I went off of I translate them like, "Yeah, I don't know what that's describing. It doesn't make any sense." So, I'd kind of refer back to the painted photos that Volks made. So as I was looking at those, I noticed, hey, the back pieces of the armor, they've masked them and painted them in like either the frame or an off shade from the frame. So I was like, well, I'm going to do that, and so I masked it and did it, and then I realized why they did that, and that's because you get this nice kind of like shadow, so it darkens the piece, so you're not looking like through a weirdly tinted, clear piece, and then it gives it this extra layer of just definition. So if you look at it like in quarter light from a corner, you can see like the inner workings of like a mechanism inside the machine, and to me that was just the icing on the cake. So it's one of those steps that can really make or break some of these more translucent uh, 5-star stories kits because it just gives it that extra depth behind it.
Was that your first layer of paint, the recessed there areas that are gray, or is that the last layer?
So in that picture, I don't know. So I think that's finished because that was a two stage. Part of the armor on the Baga Ha Ri is like a darker gray that you paint, and then the directions tell you to mist over it with Gaia Pearl Silver. So it gives it kind of just a little effect without it being like a full metallic. And you can see it more in those photos right there with the masking. I might have gone a little heavy on the pearl, but it ended up looking pretty good, I think.
I think it looks awesome. Yeah, you see a little bit of that sheen, when it's catching the light. Um, so you're masking all this off then. You're painting it all in the green layers,
Yes.
and then you're masking off these parts, and then
Yep.
painting it in the.
So the one big detriment to some of these 5-star stories kits is especially when you're doing the clear look is that you have to reverse mask. And in some cases of some of these kits, like one of them I've got the Fultrum Bringer, um, you have to really plan out your masking because typically what you do is, I would just spray the whole thing gray, mask that, and then do the green. Well, you can't.
You're gonna give up your clear. Yeah.
Correct. So you have to kind of like think and go, oh, I can't do it this way. So I have to paint everything and then do a reverse mask, which I've got a few kits that I've got to that are clear. And the way that the design is, I'm going to have to mask the certain pieces, paint, then take the mask off, mask everything else that wasn't masked, and then paint that section. So some of these are going to be a lot of work. It's going to be worth it, but at the time I'm probably going to be questioning some life choices.
Yeah, like for me, I
Yeah.
feel like the challenging part is like the tape lifting off, like when you do reverse masking like that, like especially
Yep.
when it's
And
like
actually,
tucked in, right? So I'm like,
so
I'm worried
this is
about
a
that when it's
trick that I
yeah.
use. So with that, I actually have a tool that I forgot where I got it, but it's got a very fine point. And so the idea is to take this with your tape and then just run it down the corners so you can press it down. So typically, right before I paint any of these pieces, I'll run this over it
Yeah.
to make sure the tape's as flat as it can be,
Uh-huh.
and you have less chance of lifting. You can also use like
I
yep,
got about 4 or
that's
5
it
of these
exactly.
myself.
Like
Yeah.
what?
So this is a burnishing
Oh, the
tool for
burner.
people who want to know. Yeah. It's called a burnishing tool.
Okay.
Yep, you can
Um,
also use Q-tips, and you can like the handle. You can cut it at like I'd say a 45, 70-degree angle,
Right.
and then use the edge the same way. And it's a little bit softer, so if you're worried about scratching the paint, it's not going to dig into it like the burnishing tool could. But both of those have helped a lot with, not having tape lifts and not having, big flaws because I had a few, but not as many as I would have thought I would have.
Yeah, but I just been using like
that's a good tip.
Q-tip. I mean, not Q-tips. Like just a toothpick. But
Yeah,
I'll look into getting
that would work
something
too.
like that.
Yeah. The nice thing about burnishing tool too is it's kind of off topic, but actually a really great for detail painting as well. So if you can just get a little bit of paint right on the end there, and you can get a lot more precise in some
Oh
cases
yeah,
if you just need a little dot or something like that instead
I
of like
like
a
that.
brush.
I like that.
Good
Yeah.
idea.
So yeah, pretty helpful. Um, yeah, and for me, like with the car kits, actually, like I rely on those. The reason I have them is because I'll put a piece of tape over like something I'm trying to mask,
Mhm.
and I can get the burnishing tool into the panel line, create like an indentation, and then use a straight edge to cut the tape along the panel line
Yep.
and peel it off.
That's actually how
Um,
I did most of the masking on when I do this reverse masking. I'll usually just cover the whole thing in tape and then do that right there, get down into the recesses of the panel line and then cut through and a bit of praying and a good sharp knife and things have turned out okay.
yeah,
And,
nice little tool and cheap.
Oh yeah.
Can we talk about some of the like metallic sections? So
Yeah.
the torso, yeah. What are you doing there?
So that's one of the I'd say probably almost every of the Gothic made designs calls for a like chrome torso. um, which is stunning as far as like the visual because you've got this really pretty machine and then all of a sudden there's this huge elongated almost unnatural alien looking torso and it's painted in chrome. So it's one of the defining factors I think of these designs is that chrome. And Thorn paint makes an amazing chrome, not perfect, but it is amazing. And the application can be both rewarding and frustrating at the same time. There's a lot of steps involved, a lot of specific paints, and I've not messed it up yet, but I've been very worried many times.
Yeah. Can you get into the specifics? Like, so what are the layers of paint to get to what you see in the picture? How are you spraying?
So they have a nice little kind of write up and a few videos too. But obviously you definitely want to test and test again because US spec PSI to uh, bars, which was they used in Japan, can be harder to convert. So the base layer after you've done your priming and cleaning is the Born Under Black, which is one of the most amazing gloss blacks I've ever seen. Um, it's incredibly self-leveling, almost like an enamel, but it's a lacquer, thank God. Um, so you get that stage done, and if you've done it properly and you've done all your prep work correctly, you should have a near perfect reflective surface. And what that does is when you have that perfect reflective surface, the next stage of the actual born chrome goes on perfectly. Um, so I found that you have to mist it very finely, like as fine as you can get your airbrush, and it's just very slow motions back and forth. Because if you go too heavy, then you get a very nasty kind of tarnished area, and you just have to start all over. Um,
I
which
experienced.
stinks because they want you to cure each level, each stage 24 hours before you move to the next. So theoretically, doing one chrome piece takes about 3 days.
I was just gonna say I experienced that. That I messed up in that area, and I kind of had to redo it because that fine mist is like very important.
Yeah, I struggle with Chrome a lot, but yeah, recognizing that that black underlayer, that is one of the most crucial steps, right? Making sure that
Oh
that
yeah.
whole thing is perfectly smooth. That Born Chrome is like $27 a bottle or something like that.
Yeah. It's not cheap. I mean, we're lucky to even get it over here. I mean, there's Born actually collaborates with Volks in Japan, and they make specific paints that they've picked for these kits. And they're beautiful, but they are impossible to get. I mean, you can get them, but it's going to cost some money because you're going to have to get them probably from China and then have to import them. So what's over there is probably $7 bottle will cost you probably, I'd say 24 bucks per bottle, and they're already pretty much pre-thinned. So I've been getting some and only using them kind of as reference to make sure that the tones match the mixture that they give you in the directions, because I found quite a few of them to be pretty off from what they've said. So at this point, I'm just using them to kind of take their recipe and then correct it and then share it to other people that want to do the same thing and not pay for the specific paints.
Yeah, well, that's really helpful, man. I'm sure a lot of people's wallets appreciate you for that.
I hope so.
Um, let's take a look at some final shots here. I mean, man, that is just absolutely gorgeous. And I had the pleasure of seeing this in person at Plamo, and it looks just as good in person, if not better, for sure. So yeah, how did you put a base on this thing?
Yes. So that was I've got quite a few of those now, but that's basically like a $4 Hobby Lobby wood base, and then I found that they had some magnetic writing boards. So I pulled the magnetic pieces off, which were just screwed onto the four corners, and then just elongated those, and then bought some kind of like dress up bolts from Home Depot and used those to kind of hold it down. Now, I did have to get a little creative since I did pin the heels to the base. I had to put kind of a support, which I used, I think, a drilled piece of metal because it was bowing a little bit because of the weight of it. But um, I really didn't want to go too crazy with the base, but I also wanted it to give kind of a nice reflective sheen in certain lights and plan to have a nice placard, but it's not it doesn't fit as well. I'd like to redo it later on, but a buddy of mine made it and it turned out great. It's just not exactly what I want, so maybe with the next one that I build, I'll change it up and do something a little different because I actually do have a second one coming to fix some things that I think I did incorrectly on it.
Oh wow. Okay.
Cartoon.
But man, yeah, really just such a beautiful kit. And I'm sure a lot of people were inspired to give Five Star Stories a try just from seeing this and from seeing the other one that you brought as well. Yeah, so let's talk about the other kit that I've seen of yours. And
Yeah.
can you describe this one?
So that's the Haifa bringer. It is the retcon of the Terror Mirage. So it's kind of like a covert assassin type unit. The biggest thing that I wanted to change on it was, since it was the Volks, and at the time, GHS, their recast was solid uh, resin and not the clear. I really wanted to make sure this did have a little bit of translucence to it, and the original paintwork was an opaque paint. So I spent, I think, 2 months kind of layering different blues and metallics and pearls to kind of get a semi matte, metallic but translucent paint, and ended up really lucking out and getting a good top coat to kind of give it that kind of dark appearance when it's in lower light, but then also you can still see through it in certain areas. So the biggest thing was just to kind of give it that menacing, assassin type arc and design to it, which is also why we added the little lightning effects around the two different gut brows later on. But that was a really fun kit, and also taught me about the rainbow slits that a lot of the AKD designs have in them, and how much of a fun pain they are on these clear kits.
Let me see if I can find an example of that. So like here in the skirts,
Yep. So you're
you're
basically
doing
in.
like a gradation. Yeah.
Yep. So because it's clear, their process is you reverse mask all that, paint it silver, and then you take the clears and gradate over them. So very long, very scary process because you've pretty much got a completely finished design at that point, and if you mess up, you've got to clean off and start over.
These are some really beautiful colors as well. Do you remember like what the layers were here in the blue areas?
Oh, I think it ended up being a 4-stage paint. Um, it was kind of a mix of clear blue, purple, and some fuchsia for the base layer. And then I did a thinned down version with like a GX100 of Prism Blue Black from Gaia that I ended up adding a little bit more clear purple to. Um, then there was kind of like a finalish layer that ended up being, I think it was a pearl mixed with a clear purple. Um, and then I did a custom mix of a top coat mixing some clear, like a gloss clear, and a matte that doesn't kind of like kill metallic uh, flake, till I got kind of a nice satin that just gave off the look that the original design did without getting too glossy or too flat matte. So it
Yeah.
was fun, and I paused halfway through and had to reteach myself my process because I had painted a few of the blue armor pieces and then came back like 2 months later and went, "Oh, I've forgotten what I did," and kind of had to practice and redo it again. So that was fun. That was a lot of fun.
And yeah, you've got a little bit of like a sort of clear purple pearlescence going on in the torso in this one too.
Yep. So the recipe for this torso is actually marginally different. So it's the same under black, that nice gloss black they had, but because this is an assassin unit, they gave it the black chrome, which unfortunately is a 5 Star Stories and Born collaboration paint made for the Dacus. So I had to import that, and then after you painted the black chrome, which is beautiful. You're supposed to coat that in I think it was the Dimor Zorro kind of purple black, which I did a few tests and it came out really strong. So I ended up thinning that down, I think, with 75% GX100 so I could kind of control the purple without it just completely wiping out the chrome. And after a few tests, it came out just a perfect sheen where in low light it looks very purple, and in bright light you can still see that chrome with just a little bit of that purple in it. So that was a fun little experience.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, let's talk about your display here because one of the striking things about your the pictures that I remember seeing online are these like little lightning bolts and stuff. Can you share how you achieve that?
So the base is just like a plot plate that they've already got hexagoned out. I wanted to just do is just like a nice kind of marble tiled gloss, so it kind of contrasted the matte of the armor on the kit. And then as I kind of was finishing up, I went, you know what, this thing's got a really menacing look to it. And fluorescents are used like on the eyes and some of the pieces that kind of light up. So I was like, it'd be kind of fun just to like play around with some like 0.5 millimeter wire and see if I can just make a lightning effect. So played around with it, made a few, and ended up wrapping it kind of around the blade, and it just gave it a really great look. And then, of course, in the photos, with it reflecting off the chrome on the blades, it just came out perfect. So, uh, them being two different blades, I wanted to give them like a subtle difference, like one being, you know, a bit more like lighter in its design, and the other one a bit more of a greenish red, which in fluorescent doesn't show as well, but it did give them enough of a difference. Like one of the blades is darker than the other, so I wanted to give it a more ominous appearance, and so might have achieved that. It's up to it's up to everyone's personal belief.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. And are you hitting it with a black light or UV light? Is that
Yeah, yeah. So I've got I think like three for this one because I have to illuminate the two pieces on the blades, and then of course the eyes have that fluorescent red because otherwise with that really heavy brown you can't really see them too heavily. So
and then you've got some what look like little figures or something happening there?
yeah. So those are called seekers, and they basically are like reconnaissance units. Um, one of them will emit like a chaffing smoke, and the other one's kind of just made like gather information about locations of other enemies so that they don't get snuck up on because these things travel. I mean, so the general output of like a Gothic maid is equal to half of a solar system. So they generate a lot of power, and according to the lore in the book, the mecha can move at light speeds. So reconnaissance is pretty important when you're moving that fast or over that great of a distance, not to get suddenly show up behind your enemy and they're like looking you straight down a barrel. So um, cool little units that are kind of only with the AKD forces. There's others, but they don't come with the kit. So I think this one had 4 in total. I only finished 2, and then the Grit Bringer comes with 2, 1 of each. I didn't want to flood the base with these things. I just did the 2 and called it a day.
Yeah, that's awesome. Nice little touch for people who know. Yeah.
Like I seen it in person too in final. It's like it's really nice. It's like you can't really see it in the photos, but like when you see it in person, you can see the the metallic and you can see through the piece. So it's a lot easier to see. So you really appreciate it when you see it in person. Like when you see like it standing next to his other 5-star story, I don't know, it looks more menacing. Like you're saying, it's like a darker tone. For me, I don't see so much dark 5-star story kit, so it's cool to see something like that.
Let's talk about yours, David. So this is the same kit,
Yeah, so
right?
it's it's
Um,
the same, but recast. Yeah.
and you kind of took a little bit of a lighter blue approach.
Well,
Uh,
so what happened was I was trying to follow the paint guide, like the ratio to get like it's supposed to be like a grayish tone, like a light gray, um, and satin looking too. So I end up not putting enough, or I ran out of paint basically. So I kind of like the tone that I had, like it ended up being this like light blue shade of color, and then I tested the paint on like a spoon, and then I layered the pearl on top of it. I'm like, okay, I like the sheen of it. I like how it looks. So that's where I just stuck with it by accident. So I just went with this tone.
I think it's really cool though.
Yeah, yeah,
It came
Um,
out great with that against the darker frame because this one does have a darker frame tone than most of the others.
yeah,
So the contrast is beautiful, I thought.
yeah, and you can't tell in these pictures, but I remember seeing one of the reels that you posted where you were kind of shining a light really close to
mm,
it, and then you can really see like the sort of the depth of the blue.
yeah,
Like sometimes in the pictures, it's like it might look like a flat blue, but actually it does have like some pearl and some flake in there
yeah. So
that I thought was really cool.
yeah, like even in this image, it's hard to see unless like you really like over expose that area, you'll see it. But it's like I was talking about burial build like in person. It's like once you have like lighting and stuff like that, like you can see it much closer. You can see all those little details. But like even in these photos, you can't really see it unless it's like noted somewhere.
Oh, yeah. Unfortunately, this is the 5 star, especially the
Yeah,
GTMs. The way these things are painted, usually, if it's not in person, you're missing out on
yeah, yeah.
so much extra detail than when you're in person, and you just can actually shift the light by walking around. You're just
Yep.
blown away. I'm sure this looks so much better in person.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, definitely recommend
And it looks great
anybody.
here.
thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So and it looks even better in person, is what you're saying, and I believe it. Thanks for sharing those with us, David. And yeah, Dan, we really appreciate all your expertise and um, just sharing so much valuable knowledge and information with us about 5 star stories. And I'm excited. I'm a little nervous about starting one, but yeah, I'm really motivated. My goal is to try to get this guy over here done uh, by the end of the year. Maybe if I'm lucky, I'll bring it to Palmo, but we'll see.
That'll be a
um,
fun one.
yeah, you'll know when I start it because I'll probably be messaging you like 8 times a day.
That's cool. I'm interested to see how the tendrils on that one are, because I know that on the resin they're each individual pieces.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, and then that means there's like 50 of them or something.
Yeah, I think there's like 21 and there's three. So yeah, about 63 pieces you have to pin to each other.
I'm not gonna buy it.
Yeah, it's just straight up.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we let you go, Dan, we like to end these episodes with some quick hitter questions.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you a couple, and you can answer if you want. You can pass if you want. What is the all-time favorite kit that you've built?
If it's gunpla, I'd have to say the Master Grade Ausla Advanced Zeta kit. Um, as far as just total, even though it stressed me out to no end, the Baga Ha Ri was really fun. I think we ended up, I think I took it half done and then finished it in 2 weeks after, spending 3 months on and off on it. So it was definitely really stressful, but, the green, I love the green. So I will, well, I'm going to do another one. So yeah, definitely one of my favorite kits.
How many kits do you think you have in your backlog?
I don't know. I I know I think we counted I think I have 36 5 star stories kits. Um and then I have enough. I have more than
Okay.
enough.
Uh, would you prefer a 1,000 piece kit or 10 100 piece kits?
10 100 sounds pretty good, unless that 1,000 piece kit, or that 100,000 whatever. If it's a really good kit, like if they made the detonator bringer, or if someone gave me a Jag Barrage Twin Towers, I would take it. It's gonna hurt. We're talking a year, maybe two of building, but it's one of those. It'd be one of those projects where it doesn't matter. It'd just be fun.
All right. Would you call that a Grail kit? It doesn't exist. Is
Oh,
it?
it doesn't exist. No, I don't even know if it
Okay.
can exist. That thing, I don't know how they build it. They probably will, but it's gonna be insanely big and insanely expensive.
What is your Grail kit then, if you have one?
Um, I've been pretty fortunate. I have most of the kits that I've really wanted to. Maybe not the originals. Like I'd love to have an original like Volks Zarathustra Afterbringer, but I've seen what those sell for, and I'm good. Um, for something that's not made yet, it's supposed to be made soon. I've been really wanting to get one of the new Fillmore like the Lanius kits. Um, the one that's kind of based off Neptune and is kind of a blue is, I think the crest on the head, the whole design is just beautiful. So I'm really looking forward to when they make that. And until then, I will settle for the new Agha, which is supposed to be the next lottery kit if I get lucky enough to get it.
What's your favorite part of the building process?
Painting, 100%
And
without a doubt. I love painting.
it shows. What's your least favorite part of the building process?
Spending the money,
Good answer.
spending the money.
Um, what's an unsung hero on your workbench?
I would probably. I've got a lot of like small. They're not quite blades. They're not quite chisels. Um, and a friend of mine had like said, "Hey, these are really good for like just small cleanup work." Um, but now that I think about it, I think my unsung hero is a Suji Burrito tiny file that's typically used to like sand down like hair follicles on some of the like figure kits. But I found it's really useful to like help clean up panel lines that don't quite have a perfect finish, or just getting into small little areas that have like a little nub. Like when it comes to these Volks kits with the mold slip, you'll have like this little bitty hangover, and you can't get sandpaper into there. You don't really want to take a blade, so just taking that little 600 grit file and just slowly working it down has just been a godsend. So it has
Well,
a
you gotta
special
send me a
place.
link. Yeah, send me a link for that. Are you watching or listening to anything while you build?
Sometimes, I'll have like some kind of a lo-fi. We go camping a lot, so I'll have like nature lo-fi playing, just background music, campfires, just stuff to like keep me a little engaged. But sometimes if I'm painting, it's just the hum of the fans and that thing and the waterfall booth moving. So once that thing gets running on, there's no point in having anything else on.
Beautiful. Uh, is there a builder or creator that you think deserves more appreciation?
Um, this is going to be biased because he's also very big into 5-star stories, and that's kind of where I met him. Plamoplegia is an astounding artist. He doesn't have a huge follower count, and I remember we were talking because I was selling one of my 5-star kits that I was just like, I'm not going to get to this. Like the list is so long, and he is like, hey, can I I'll might buy it from you. And he was like, what's the parts count? I thought that was an odd question because, usually we don't care. And I was like, well, it's, this many. He's like, oh, crap. I was like, I don't know if I can do that. And I was like, I've seen you work. So I didn't know this, but he has, I guess, like, I forgot the word of it now, but, his hands are kind of crippled, I guess you could say. But seeing the stuff that he does, I would not have believed it in a heartbeat. His paint work makes me envious. So definitely very inspiring, and just love his work, whether it's figures, 5-star stories, or any other kind of work. Just really great job.
That's awesome.
It's one of those things where, I saw it and I went, you're kidding me. Like that's what you're doing. That's amazing. I mean, I feel like extremely humbled to be like I have perfect motility, and I'm sitting here whining and complaining, and I'm like, nah, I'm good. I can't say a word. Like that's just straight up just hard work, effort, and skill. So big shout out, big props.
That's awesome. My last question is there anyone I should get on the pod next to record? And the twist is you have to help me convince them.
Kind of want to do
I think
something.
David said you, by the way.
Wait, who said this is
But
David's fault?
Blukara did.
I don't know. So the 5-star stories is kind of like more of a straight build thing, clean work essentially. Um, and before that, I think you had it was I think the last two were shaded builds. So I kind of want to say my close buddy Gavin, Avon Gavin, he does some of the. It's more 5-star stories, but we don't have to focus on that. But he does some of the best weathering work a younger just, I mean, the dude's young, and he's like, I'm like, wish I gotten into it at that age because his work just blows me away. He actually won the 5-star stories category um, for Playmo, and he's the one that inspired me to do a lot of my weathered builds is because his work is just perfect. So he'd be great, I think. I mean, I don't know if he will. I'll try, but I'm going to see him this weekend. Um, but he's a great artist. I love his work.
That's awesome. Yeah, great choice. I follow him too, and I remember seeing his builds at Plomo as well. And yeah, very different aesthetically to yours, but also like just equally cool and really intricate and yeah, really beautifully weathered. So yeah, awesome. Well, that takes us to the end, man. Dan, thank you again. I know it's like a little bit later in your time zone, but
No, I'm good. I'm usually up
yeah,
till about 1 anyway. Much to
but
my
yeah,
wife's chagrin.
well, appreciate you taking the time again. And David, thanks for hopping on and sharing your insights and everything as well. So appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
I want to thank Dan again for taking us into the world of 5-star stories and for showing us his builds, which, as you've seen, has some of the most beautiful paintwork I've ever seen on a model kit. And I want to thank David again for joining us on this episode too and for sharing his beautiful Haifa bringer. What do you think? Would you try a 5-star stories kit? Have you built one before and want to share your experience? Leave a comment below and let us know. This has been Newtype Notebook. Thanks for listening and happy building.
Newtype Notebook has an official sponsor, and that's Splash Paints. Splash makes up 80 or 90% of my paint collection. It's great, ready to spray airbrush lacquer paints made in Oregon. Super smooth, great coverage, super durable. They have everything you could need to bring your model to the next level. Primers, mecha colors, including the classic Evangelion colors, military colors, metallics, not to mention hundreds of car colors. I personally love using the military colors in my mecha builds just to give them a real world sensibility. The Candy Red and 2K Clear were my secret weapons for my RE100 Nightingale. And I won't use any other paint brands for my 124 scale car kits. You can order Splash Paints direct from splash-paints.com. Splash will be giving away paints to a lucky Newtype Notebook listener for every episode of this season. Keep an eye on the Undergated Network Instagram for more details.